There's a really dangerous side effect of gaslighting that I don't really hear people talking about very often. So if you have experienced gaslighting in any form, especially if it has been prolonged or extreme, you're going to want to watch this video to the end. In this video, we're going to talk about that side effect, how to recognize it in your life, and I'm going to close with some mental health tips to help you avoid this negative outcome. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina, and on this channel we talk about emotional abuse, spirituality, and self-development. Today we're talking about a very dangerous effect of gaslighting that if it is present in your life, you're definitely going to want to identify it and do whatever you can to mitigate its effects, because the effects can be pretty serious. But before we get to that, I have to mention that this video is sponsored by BetterHelp, an online therapy portal that will connect you with a qualified therapist. And if you use the link betterhelp.com/common-ego, you'll get 10% off your first month. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm not going to cover gaslighting and what it is or what it looks like in this video because I have a couple of other videos that do that, and I will link to those in the description. This video is for those of you who may have recognized that gaslighting has been present in your life. Maybe you've had an emotionally abusive partner or an emotionally abusive parent who has been guilty of gaslighting you for an extended period of time. And if that's the case, there are some effects, there are some after effects that you're going to notice. And some of them are kind of obvious, relatively obvious. So if somebody is getting you to question your reality, your thoughts and emotions, you're going to be very uncertain. You're going to refer to other people more often than you trust yourself. Gaslighting can also impact your self-esteem and your sense of self-worth, your sense of who you are. And in my opinion, that makes it one of the worst forms of abuse, because that is one of the worst things you can do to someone, is to take away their sense of self. That is who we are. That is everything. But one impact of gaslighting that I don't hear discussed terribly often is that we end up suppressing emotions. And this does make sense, because if you don't trust your emotions, you might end up thinking that you're too sensitive or you're overreacting all the time. And so as a result of that, you may end up just suppressing your emotions, just pushing them down. This is too much. I shouldn't feel this. I'm going to just push it down until it goes away. The problem is it doesn't go away. Another effect that you might experience after being with somebody who is gaslighting you for an extended period of time is that you might feel that you're not allowed to feel your feelings. And this is very common around emotionally abusive people. You end up walking on eggshells because you know that their reaction to whatever your emotion is going to be so extreme that it's just going to make everything worse. So if you're feeling angry, they're going to be angrier that you're angry. If you're feeling hurt, if you talk to them about having hurt your feelings, they're going to turn it around on you and make you feel bad for even bringing it up. So if you feel like you're not allowed to feel your feelings, you're naturally going to try to push them down. But the thing is, these feelings, they've got to go somewhere, and they don't go away. And I think on some level, we know that logically. But I can tell you from experience, when you're actually doing it, it feels like it's working, right? You feel like, all right, I put it away, it's good, it's gone, I'm fine, everything is okay. But the problem is that it's not, it's still there. And the real danger of suppressing your emotions is that the mind and body are fully connected and they work synchronistically. So something that's bothering you emotionally, if you don't deal with it, will end up coming out physically. And this is something that we know through research. There are many studies on the physical effects of stress, anxiety, depression on our body. And we're talking about things like heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, things that we really don't want in our lives. And when these things do pop up, suppressed emotions are probably the last thing that you're thinking about. So how does it happen? And this is something that I've always been super curious about, because I've always heard that and accepted that this happens if we don't process our emotions. You're much more likely to develop chronic illness. But the question I've always had is, why does that happen? How does that happen? I can get that the mind and the body are connected, but like exactly what goes on? And I want to talk through two possibilities. The first is the fight or flight reaction. And you're probably familiar with this. It's a very primal reaction within all of us that essentially prepares the body to fight or run. Flight. And this primal reaction is meant to be as a result of an immediate threat. Like, let's say you're met with a large animal who's coming at you. What are you going to do? Now, you might fight, probably more likely going to run, but either way, your body has to be prepared to take that step. If you're going to run, you better run faster than you've ever run in your life. And if you're going to fight, you better punch harder than you have ever punched in your life. And so when you're met with a threat, an immediate threat, your body prepares for the fight of its life. And it does this by prioritizing processes that you need to save your life. So you need that adrenaline pumping, you need that blood flowing to your muscles so that you can go. But let's just say you just ate an apple, right? Right before this animal came rushing at you, and your body was getting to work digesting that apple. That's not going to save your life. Breaking down that apple is not going to save your life. So the body puts that on hold and puts all the emphasis on the thing that will save your life. Any process that you can use to get out of that situation, your body will prioritize. And this becomes a big problem in modern life when we have stresses that we can't get away from. So it may be an immediate threat, but it stays there. Things like work stress, money stress, partner stress, somebody who is being emotionally abusive to you and causing stress in your life. If you can't get rid of the person, if you can't get rid of the stress, it stays there and it has an impact on the body. Now, another reason why you might have physical symptoms, why you might be more likely to develop some sort of chronic illness as a result of emotional abuse or prolonged stress, is because you might be self-sabotaging as a result of suppressing those emotions. So, like I said, when we suppress emotions, they don't go away. They're still there. They're waiting to bubble up to the surface, and they're ever present in our subconscious. And the subconscious is what drives those choices that we don't really consciously think about. And this, when you have things that you haven't processed, when you have pain that you haven't processed, and overall just negative emotions that are still hanging out there, you're much more likely to make poor choices, and you're less likely to practice acts of self-love. So when you're making poor choices, like drinking alcohol in excess or abusing drugs, maybe smoking cigarettes, overeating foods that are bad for you, avoiding exercise, these are all things that will impact your health on the long term. So I've already talked about how gaslighting can impact your ability or desire to process your own emotions, but that's not even the full picture. In this society, we are so pressured to put on a happy face and to be positive. And there are so many ways that this is reinforced to us. And it's often a well-meaning friend or a spiritual leader or a pastor who will advise you to focus on the good instead of the bad. And while that can be good advice if you're dwelling in negativity, it's not good advice if you are trying to completely avoid or bypass negativity. And this comes in many forms. It could be called toxic positivity. It could be called spiritual bypassing. There are many ways that we can be encouraged and even convince ourselves that it's a good idea to suppress emotions. So now I want to share some mental health tips that can help you know what to do when you're feeling the emotions that you don't want to feel, the negative emotions. So the most important first step is to acknowledge the emotions. And this sometimes can be surprisingly difficult. Sometimes we feel negative emotions and it feels the same way in the body. And if you're not really attuned to yourself and your own emotions, it can be difficult to know whether you're feeling hurt or you're feeling angry. But this first step is to identify and acknowledge what it is you're really feeling. The second tip is to remove the root cause of that problem if you can. So this may be a conversation with someone. If someone has upset you and you think a conversation would be helpful, talk to the person about it. Tell them how you feel. Tell them that what they did made you feel a certain way. And if you're dealing with a narcissist or somebody who's highly abusive and you know that they're just either going to blow up or blow you off when you tell them how you feel, if you can, remove that person from your life. Now, if you can't do either of those things, it is really important for you to have some support. So this may be a friend or a family member that you trust and you can talk to, or it might be a therapist. But either way, you want to talk through and process those emotions that you're having and validate your own feelings, because if you're dealing with someone who's abusive, they are never going to do that. But just because they're not going to do it doesn't mean that your feelings aren't valid. Your feelings are valid. So the third mental health tip I have for you when you're dealing with gaslighting and you're guilty of suppressing your own emotions is to reflect on your own reactions. Sometimes we end up repressing emotions because maybe we reacted in a way or acted in a way that was inappropriate. So if you're feeling anger and you just go off the wall and you hurt somebody else's feelings or you damage something, that's an inappropriate way to deal with your anger. It doesn't mean the anger was inappropriate. It is your reaction that was inappropriate. So the important thing to note is that it's not the emotion that was the problem. If there was a problem and you can identify that you could have acted differently, maybe it was the behavior that was a problem. So when things calm down, you can think about how you might be able to handle that emotion in a healthier way. And the fourth mental health tip I have for you is to make time for self-care. So this is the opposite of that self-sabotage that we're talking about here. And oftentimes we self-sabotage because we are gaslighting ourselves. The voice from the abusive person gets embedded and we can end up taking on their beliefs of us, which are completely untrue. So whether it feels like something you should be doing or not, you can take baby steps to get there, but try to take some small act of self-love every day. And if you feel like you're having trouble with this, self-sabotage may be an issue in self-gaslighting. So I am going to highly suggest that you watch this video right here. And I'll see you next week.